It says this meeting is being live streamed.
All right, we will now call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission for October the 18th to order. First item of business on the agenda is approval of our minutes that were sent out for our meeting from July 19th.
I've reviewed the meeting minutes and I make a motion we accept them as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second concerning minutes? Second. Second, any questions, any comments, changes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody like sign, and they all, it's unanimous, even with our online Zoom. We do have one member online, so. All right, John, what we got tonight?
Actually, we don't have any old business. We do have some new business. We have that. We have, you've been given a copy of a proposal and greeting from Mr. Adams, representative of the MegaFit Meals. You want to come up?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure. I mean, are you all right with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. My name is Chip Adams. I'm a lawyer from Murray, and I'm working with the Giorgio family, GPV Investments, who's the owner of the property over on Oak Park Boulevard, as well as MegaFit Meals, who functions as the lessee of that property. We were here with the Board of Adjustments a few weeks ago dealing with some ongoing conditional use permit issues, and I tried to really distill a little bit of that so you'd have some flavor of it. But the critical issue here today is more for what MegaFit and GPV is going to do with that property on a going forward basis. Because this is not the conditional use matter, but it is certainly how our conditional use permit application is prepared is really dependent upon this body's interpretation of its rules. And in the zoning code, there's a requirement regarding off-street loading and unloading. And very generally, basically every business has to have some type of off-street loading and unloading. And unless you're in an I-1 or an I-2 district, that is required to be at the rear of the building. And that's kind of a problem for the GPV building and for MegaFit, because the question is, what is the rear of the building? There are, obviously on this one, it's four sides. There is the south side, which is now the new entrance for the most part. There is the west side, which you can see from Oak Park Boulevard. And then there is the north side, which faces the fire station. The old front of the building is now where parking and things go on, but really would be considered from a practical standpoint more of a side of the building. In this situation, based upon their exponential growth, one of the few companies that has actually been growing during a worldwide pandemic, is really the only logical place that they could put any loading or unloading is on that east side of the building, which depends on whether you call that the rear or not. And I'm really unsure how that type of, if this body were willing to grant them the ability to do that, I don't know whether that's done by variance or a modification of the code or a one-time, whatever mechanism to accomplish that is what would be great. Because if geographically they do not have the ability to put a loading dock on any other side otherwise, and from a straight curb appeal standpoint, I think as you come down Oak Park Boulevard, you would want it to be on that east side where it's going to be screened from traffic on Oak Park Boulevard as well as from 62. So basically, and we've got some planning and engineering things to do, which might be an exercise in futility if we didn't know what side we needed to put that on. So we're simply asking for a way to start moving on in the conditional use process to put that loading dock or a loading dock that's in compliance on the east side of the building. And I could ramble on a lot longer, but I'm going to choose to be efficient. And if you have any questions, I'm here. We have Mr. Gus Giorgio here with us tonight, who's the owner.
Okay,
Would a copy of the original site plan be beneficial in your review of this?
the original site plan is in how long ago?
Well, I'm talking about when in 16. I'm talking about the one from 16.
Oh,
I mean, it's gonna basically show the lot and the property. You got one? Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah,
if that's the case, and we can
there's one.
make some copies.
I think I got
several.
Okay, if you can just,
Right.
to the other two, sure.
Darren, where in there? does it
Yeah,
say
no, well,
rear?
she'll get one too.
It-
because of the-
Okay, where it says rear. On
Article 8E.
8E.
8.0E.
Two things, one major thing has happened,
Yeah,
to
that's-
create part of this is because of how much Mega Fit Meals has grown. They originally occupied about 2,400 square feet, which would not have constituted the issues that we see now. But they have grown and grown in such a way that they've taken over the whole building. The whole building being around 17,000 square feet, 17,300 or something like that, sir. Yeah. And when they went over 10,000 square feet, that moved them into this issue here. So thus, some of the background on where we are and what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I mean, I get all of that. I think our
Right.
main issue is that language of rear.
Right.
And that, I think,
Of course, the opening of the off-street loading and unloading requirements is what he
right,
quoted there,
right.
stating off-street loading should be logically located. And then item number 4 in that section says, with the exception of I-1 and I-2 districts, such loading and unloading facilities shall be located at the rear of commercial buildings and shall not interfere with primary customer parking spaces or streets.
And I think if we go back and look, you look at the original use of that building and then just how it has evolved over time, and that building was going to be tough to put anything at a rear depending upon what it is,
Agreed.
just
true, you don't have room.
whether it was retail or anything else.
Right, if we go to our definition section and we look at the definition of front, it is the frontage is the property boundary and lot abutting on a street. If we look at their site plan, their street frontage is Oak Park,
Is it parks? Yeah, sure.
Even though their property is not contiguous with,
even though their
Well,
Well,
property,
it's like
well,
the only access true access they have and where their property actually meets a street is Oak Park.
Yeah.
Because that roadway is part of their property based on the plat that you say.
And so we're kind of conflicting even in our language when it spells out shall be logically and conveniently located, but then in 4 says shall be located.
Based
at
on the
the rear.
size. Yeah, we'll take a look.
is there
Look
more,
at
On
the
more
si-
four.
it-
detail in there?
I know, but it depends on the size of. Because some of these are dealing with people with the commercial buildings that don't have that kind of square
Right,
footage.
but that's the only section that spells out the location of at the rear.
Yeah, and that's based on, with the exception of I-1, I-2, such loading and unloading facilities shall be located at the rear of commercial buildings and shall not interfere with primary customer parking spaces or streets.
Yeah, and I totally agree with shall not interfere with primary customer parking in spaces or streets, but it really should say shall be located logically and conveniently located, something like that, instead of that rear. Because I think that's where we're
Or-
gonna run into the
Or at
issue.
least give an exception for
Exception.
oddly situated buildings, but most of the time, this is starting from a
Where did you-
scratch
where are you
development
reading
plan.
right,
Oh, the very first sentence, yeah.
Yeah, the very first sentence in E where it says that. I mean, 'cause obviously, this is a case where that is the most logically and conveniently location for it.
Right, and it's because we're altering a building, not from its original.
Yeah,
Use.
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
also,
don't know
when
why
that,
they ever
when,
put it
and
there
if you go back to the history of that, that building was on a parcel that at one time, when the previous owner had it, it actually was a parcel that contained both O'Reilly's and the liquor store, Good Spirits, were all on that. And so it was the only building on that. And then there was an access coming off of 62. So you had two access points at that point. When they split that up,
They
that
sold-
access from 62 went to O'Reilly.
They sold that.
They
access
sold
road.
it off, so it's no longer part of that whole parcel. And so when they divided it up, they still had street access, which was required, but they put their street access off on the other side. Yeah. So that's part of the issue with that. I mean, it wasn't originally in such a configuration that you have today.
Yeah.
When it was cut up, that's when you get that.
Sure.
Is the street that comes in from Oak Park down on the south side of that building, is that a city street?
No, sir, that's it. That's their property. That's
It's
their
private.
access. That's their
They
driveway.
own it all, or Dairy Queen?
You'll
owns
see
part
that,
of
hold
it?
on, you see that?
Based on-
That
based on
belongs
the
to
plan,
them.
They own it all.
That, according to the deed,
This whole street
that whole
belongs
street
to
is,
them.
that's theirs.
The only reason I'd say anybody else owns it is
Okay.
because
That's
the
their-
liquor
that
store
is
paid
their
to service
property.
it. So I'd say it's
Now,
their service.
I can't tell you if there's an easement rights to that or not, but I can tell you that it, based on the survey, it shows that as their property.
Okay. My question, of course, the street on the fire department side is not a city street. And it's used all the time
It is.
for a city street. I'm gonna say it is because it's, that people use it and they shouldn't. Coming in and out of there. They should not use that street at all.
Yeah.
And my question to these folks are, you got about 15 or 20 semis parked in there right now. You got room to put in a loading dock?
Actually, right now, there's only one semi parked there, a FedEx trailer. That's it.
Okay.
It's a recent reduction.
It's
Yeah.
changed. It's changed.
It
since
is.
the last
It's changed.
time.
You got one left and they've moved
Okay.
5 out.
The
Okay.
FedEx trailer is one that stays there for FedEx's
But-
convenience.
The only logical place you can put a loading dock is on the east side of that building.
Yes, and
You
those-
can't get a truck in anywhere else.
You're correct.
I mean, you can't come in the fire department side. There's no way. You can't do that. You'll
And,
tear up everything in there and it's down.
and geographically,
Yeah.
even if you had another 100 feet that way, it still would be a horrible place for a loading dock.
And do you have room on the east side for a loading dock?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're gonna
And
back it
parking.
in. Long
That's what we
ways.
wanted to talk to the engineers about, how to do that. And the loading days vary. There's not, it's not a constant flow. It's a scheduled set of deliveries.
We hope you grow even more and. it
Oh,
is
gosh,
not
yes.
low.
Yeah, I guess my thing is I'm just trying to
Yeah.
fix it like
Well,
across the board. I mean, if
Yeah,
this is
and I
gonna
think
be-
it is something might want to reapproach.
Yeah.
As another solution, but.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually the requirements. Is this the? Essentially the
current.
site plan, or if you're, I mean, I
That's
know
the
it's
current,
current. I
that
know
is
it,
the
but
current
the-
criteria, requirements or criteria for construction in R1, B1 and B2.
Right.
But that right there, that's
So that's
that's the supplemental requirements for all zones, because that's Article 8. Article 8 is your all inclusive, and if there's an exception, they let you, it says so. Hence the parking in I1, I2 does not have to be in the back.
Yeah, I think that the consideration is that you keep your customers out of your trucking area. And I don't think that's a problem on the east side either.
No, it's more of, there are some customers, but there's a place for them to park on the front.
And will they actually be coming through that south side door now? Is that where your retail business will be coming from?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I just want to.
Yeah, that is one of the main entrances, and, there's obviously access to on the east side, but that's more the front now, as it is.
Right.
And most of the parking, we went out, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks ago, Ms. Giorgio and I counted parking places and we'll be able to accommodate parking.
How many did you actually have?
Like 80? Yeah, it was, I think 84.
Sounds about right. I just basically did an aerial of what I could see and it looked somewhere in that range, yeah. I didn't know if I was missing anything or anything.
It wasn't 84, that was employees. It was in excess of 60, if I remember correctly. We counted them.
That's right, 84 employees, that's right.
And there's different sheets, so that all the employees don't park at the same time.
Yes,
So there's not gonna be 84 cars there at one time?
no, they're on shifts.
Okay. And you still got room to park all those cars and build a loading dock?
More
Yes.
than,
Okay.
Well, I mean, that would have to be shown from an engineer standpoint,
Yeah, I know,
but
but I don't know. Not a lot of property, maybe.
Obviously, you probably.
well, that's the reason I'm saying, an engineer would have to show that, you know, because they'll have the ability to show, you know, the parking places are 180 square feet. Okay, how that's set up, is how it's, you know, so whatever, it's got to be generally 9 by 20 or 10 by 18. What it's kind of normally be. Well, if you're gonna do a 6, it depends on the layout of how you put them in, but it has to be 180 square feet for a parking place, all right? And then, the engineer would have to be able to show the traffic flow of the trucks and stuff like that for delivery. And they've got several that can lay that out, and they've got that on their CAD system, so they could actually overlay that to see if it's possible or not.
I mean, I think we should do whatever we need to do to make sure they keep drinking. I mean, I know long term, this is probably something we need to address as far as in our language. But with the intent, knowing that we would want to be consistent on it, you know, I mean, this may not apply to somebody else that comes and says, I want to do this too.
So what kind of action do you think we need to take? to
At
make it
this
official?
point in time, I think you guys need to think about, I mean, I think you need to think about some things. Think about what they propose, think about what we've got. Think about how it would work in other situations. Yeah, I think you need to make some little background, think about it and see if it works in your mind, or if it can work in your mind, rather than trying to make a snap decision. And I'm not saying if you're ready to make a decision, that's fine, but if we do that, depends on the direction you go. We may either have just a clarification in possible one instance, and the other one would be maybe a language. You have to do a text amendment. It just depends on which way you decide you want to go with that.
It'll be done in the form of a variance application.
So variance
That's
is
not a
only
variance.
numeric, so, yeah.
It would have to be.
It's going to vary from the language. Obviously.
Yeah.
The text amendment, it may be that they did, whatever they determine, if it's going to say that, yes, that is the back and the other is the front, then it would require some aesthetics, and basically that's a clarification. If it's something else, it may require just a text amendment. We'd have to go through that process. So,
Yeah, I think we could easily add to that, you could put a conditional use if it needs to be somewhere besides the rear.
yeah, that would be a text amendment.
Yeah.
You would have to actually go into
To
a
fix
text
it- to
amendment if
fix
you're
it
going to allow
permanently.
that to happen.
To fix
Because
it
that would
permanently.
be a text and a change in the text, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, as long as we're saying shall not interfere with primary customer parking spaces and streets, then all of that, that's the consistent part of it.
Right, and our preference would be the rear if you're designing it for
That's
traffic.
right. That's right.
But also understand that, again, once you change that, it's not an isolated one-term case. And it may be at this point.
Right.
But that could change. It could change for everything, or others. So think about it. She's unhappy because I left her in there.
Yes.
Right, I agree.
Okay, so that's the reason I say, think about it to see which way you think is the best way for the community. If that's your inclination.
I think in this case, though, we can, based on the definition of frontage, based on where their road frontage is,
We could feel
we can
confident.
feel confident and give them the confidence that we will accept the east side as the rear of the building. Yep.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Would you
Would
want
you-
aesthetic modifications
To the rear or the frontage?
to the frontage? It looks real good on the rear of the building. The front of the building looks like the back of the building. I'm just saying in
Yeah.
looks, you also deal with aesthetics. And this is in a business district, not an industrial district.
I can't see personally asking them to go to the expense to redesign that west side of that building.
Now, Ben, and I'm not saying I'm disagreeing, but I'm just saying, you think about the other buildings that have been built and what we required of them on their fronts.
I understand.
Oh,
They have
O'Reilly's.
been built. This
Those are
has been
being
there
built.
for 100 years.
But this is a change. This is not the same. I mean, it's not, this is a
Yeah, What are
change.
you gonna ask, what are we gonna ask them to do? I just don't,
Well, I mean,
I can't
you
see.
didn't, you didn't ask for a whole lot from the others other than maybe put a brick facade down there and
Well,
change
and
it
they,
to make it look like it's the front.
the south side, they've actually worked on.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, and it
Looks real good.
does. It looks good. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking in the district that you're in, just remember that you've required all the new structures to put in, even when it went to Noth.
Yeah.
Noth was a modification or change and he put in.
What if we just buffer it?
Well, I was gonna say, do they now own that part too?
The triangle, they
The
do.
triangle?
No, they do not.
I just,
But
I was-
if they put up a fence, they might eliminate two of their problems.
Can I say something? I myself would like to see it look a little more appealing on that, if we're gonna call that the front that faces Oak Park to go along with the others. I think to use the other as the back as their loading dock and all that, I certainly think we need to accompany them on that to whatever they need, whatever we need to do to make that possible. But I would like to see that side that faces Oak Park a little more appealing to what we've done the other buildings. That's my opinion.
It's hard with it. It's where the air conditioning units are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. it's probably-
The mechanics
And
yeah, there's
while you could probably have a golf cart go along the back, before you have an encroachment over there, it's a pretty tight spot back
It's
there.
about 10 foot, isn't it?
Tow motor is about all you can get back there in a small one. But nonetheless. And that could be a component part of the conditional use permit, I would say. Application.
I mean, aside from, I'm trying to think what possibly you could even do. You could do like a two-way fence in front of, kind of hiding the AC units on each one of those. And then mimic something from that's facing 62 with the logo and some landscaping, really something simple that wouldn't be outside of, I don't know. I mean, it's long, to think about trying to do something all the way down there.
Well, if you guys are inclined, if what I'm hearing is if you're inclined to make that the front and the back, what has been traditionally the front, then maybe they just bring back a drawing showing that they can do that and maybe have an elevation shot of what they would like to propose to do to the front to make it look more like the front.
Who defines where the front and the rear are?
It's defined by statute in this one.
Yeah.
Because
There's a
the
gray
front
area.
Well,
is,
but I mean, if they said, well, this has always been the front.
Mhm.
Or now we're saying this is the, front, who's saying
Well,
the front?
well, they're asking for that.
They're asking us to define which is their front.
That's right,
Basically.
because of the change
Because
in
they
the
need to,
property.
they need to put their loading dock in the
and-
rear.
and because
To
of the
abide
rear
by the
frontage.
rear.
Because originally,
Okay,
when that was the only building on that whole parcel,
I got it.
it had a front access that went into that parking
That's-
lot.
That's right, okay. Yeah, that road
That's-
frontage. is-
That's the change.
Okay, I got it.
that really could have sat on that parking lot.
Yeah, I think that's good. I
Property.
think for, just to give us an idea of what they're, give us an idea what they could do on the front of the building.
I mean, I think that would be, aesthetics are gonna have to be governed here. I mean, it's in that zone where it requires aesthetics. So you're gonna, that'll have to be a factor. Now, if this is gonna be, if you're gonna change it to where that, and say that that's the front, then it still would have to have the Board of Adjustments approval and either thinking that if it's still Board of Adjustment approval, they've got the aesthetic review. Because if it,
I thought we held on to aesthetic review.
not in
Not if
conditional
it goes,
use.
once it goes to conditional use, it. can
It's
be
that way we're
included
not
there.
making them go back and forth twice,
Correct.
to do an aesthetic review. So that, that way if it required a conditional use for the use, then we gave them the aesthetic review. So,
Is it the November meeting, Board of Adjustments, that they were to present the plans?
We were supposed to be October 26th is
Okay, so
when we're
this-
supposed to come, and
give an update anyway.
we can, I mean.
This kind of put them in a bind with us not telling them from.
No, because I
Well, we
think-
didn't have the ability to ask until today, so
Yeah.
we're not in a bind, we're just going through the
No,
process.
This is,
but-
there you go, this is the beginning of the process began. This is the first step after that last meeting.
But we couldn't go off and, I mean, all we could really do since the last time we were here is identify possible other locations to relocate, not spend any money on engineering design because we didn't know whether or not we could even do it. And it sounds like, and I think from our perspective, we can operate under the presumption that the rear of the building is going to be the east side of this, and there are going to be some other requirements that'll have to be done on the west side of it. And we can go ahead, however you choose to deal with the planning and zoning code is fine with us, if you want to do whatever y'all would like to do on it, but it gives us something to move forward on.
Basically, if they go on the presumption that you guys are gonna look at that as that now being in front of the building, then they can start working with their engineers to help develop whatever plan, if it's possible, to be able to show that. And I would suggest when you do work with them, tell them to look at the development plan in our zoning ordinance. A lot of that criteria would be helpful in showing that can be done. Because that shows you, it's a little more in detail than just a site plan.
Gotcha.
And that would actually answer a lot of the questions that would probably come up as well.
Perfect.
So do we need anything a little more formal than what we've got?
For our perspective, we're gonna go ahead and proceed and let y'all get to whatever other business that you have, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. And probably for the
Appreciate you.
26th, I'll be the only one here at that one time, since we really hadn't had a whole lot of time to do anything, and can just give a very brief update on where we are and the anticipated timeline.
Very
Because because I grew up in a construction family, I will not have firm deadline.
Yeah.
Y'all have a nice
Thank you.
day.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't get my dad's build company to build anything at my house until after he passed away. He'd always talk me out of it.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. I don't know, at this point, I don't know that you need to take anything. I mean, they understand your leanings. Whether or not you need to actually go and do something formal yet, I don't know that that's necessary at this point. I do think you want to make sure you considered it. And whatever you wind up doing with it, as far as either a text amendment or just saying that this, we do recognize this as the front of the building based on the zoning ordinance, if that's what you're going to make that call. I mean, it's just like me coming and saying, how do you perceive a tiny house? You know, back when we talked
Right.
about that,
Right.
you know. In this situation, it's because of the change of the landscape and everything. I mean, everything has changed for this property in the last decade. I mean, you got one parcel now goes 3, access to the one thing that was there all along is now limited to 1 versus 2 accesses.
Right. Well, the fire department wasn't there when it went in.
Yeah, well, then the fire department was actually utilizing that parking lot and that other drive to respond to calls as well, instead of coming out the side. So, and now it's just, their operation is not going to permit that. It's not safe for anybody at that point. So,
So an action item isn't to determine what we feel is the front of the building and the rear of the building. That's just,
it's up to you.
I don't know,
At
just
this
asking.
point, I don't know that you've actually, I think you have leaned that way and gave them some instruction on how to move forward at this point.
I guess,
If you want
I
to,
guess I might rather have a little action so we don't reverse
then,
course on them.
then by all means, just go ahead. Like I said, if you're just going to do that and you're comfortable with what your decision is, then move forward with it. If not, you need to think about it. If we want to do a text amendment, we're going to take a little more time with that because we'll require a public hearing
Our public hearing. And
Yes, sir.
readings before the.
before the ordinance go before the council. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not
So you
allowed to
just
because
want-
I'm in the chairman's seat. So,
So if you are comfortable making, just saying that.
Yeah.
That,
in this situation,
just say that what do you think that this, based on the new, or we just say what you feel based on what you discern. And then if it's a consensus, then you guys can say it.
I don't mind. I'll make a motion that after the presentation, that we determine that the west side of the building is the front facing Oak Park Boulevard and the rear of the building is the east side.
Now,
Okay.
maybe I need to go back and find, it might not be a bad idea. What determines, of course, that's the access. Okay,
well, that's the definition of frontage. Frontage is the street facing side.
okay, all right. So that's your frontage, okay.
So either the south side or the front side.
So
or the
based
west
on
side.
the definition of
Based
frontage.
on the, yes.
Let me get that. Let's make sure we read that in. So that you're,
Crystal will
I have
clean,
YouTube.
she'll clean your language, she'll clean your language.
She gets to go back and enjoy these all over
That's
again.
right.
Yes, I do. I got to go back and listen to the other one. I haven't.
The best one was, the best ones are when this conversation happens so much, and this happens in fiscal court every time. All this happens, and then somebody's like, yeah, I'll make that motion. We're like,
That's right. In here, Greg makes us say it again.
and by Robert's rules of law.
Because Gary tried his best to get away last time.
No, I was
without
just
saying it
agreeing, I was
again.
just agreeing with it.
I went through a Robert's Rule of Law training once, and she was an excellent trainer, and she said, you can't do that. Like if you're making a motion, you have to say, my
State.
motion is this, 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 and this, and this, and every time it's like. Just do what? Puppy? Oh no, you're gonna follow it.
Yeah, it's still listed.
Frontage, the property boundary of a lot abutting on a street excluding alleys. The front lot line. For the purposes of determining yard requirements in corner lots and through lots, all sides of a lot adjacent to streets shall be considered frontage. Each lot proposed for development in a residential district shall be provided with at
There isn't
least
any
20
frontage.
feet of frontage usable for establishing vehicular access to lots. Come here, lay down. Down, good girl. Establishing vehicular access to the lot in all other districts except heavy industrial, I-2. Each lot proposed for development shall be provided with at least 50 feet of frontage usable for establishing vehicular access to a lot. Now, that may be new. I don't know if they got 50 feet or not. But whether or not it is, that building was built back when apparently it was a conforming structure, even though it may or may not be a conforming structure today. Okay,
Correct.
but that does state that all sides of a lot adjacent to streets shall be considered frontage.
So the truth is they almost have no front. There's the
Their-
closest you
their-
can get to
their-
not having a front.
their
of any
frontage is
place
that
that there
drive.
is. Right, their
So,
frontage
and that
is of that
street
drive. I agree.
Is east or is west of that access is west of the building.
Based on our current definition of frontage.
That,
There's only one street, and that's Oak Park. The rest of them are private property.
That's correct. That's the only place that they connect to a public thoroughfare.
Is the city gonna be taking over those streets? I thought that was like in subdivisions and stuff after they're.
Well, there's only one street right now, and that's the one that comes
Off
up.
O'Reilly and then.
That, yeah,
And the city has
Biggest
picked that
issue-
one up?
we haven't picked it up because it doesn't have a connector. And it doesn't really have a turnaround either. So it would almost have,
And parking lot.
it would
So
almost,
what would it take to get that other street to be a street?
Off Oak Park.
they would have to turn it over to the city. But then they no longer, then there changes their frontage all over again.
That makes them have, yeah, well, that puts the rear.
I mean,
It definitely puts the rear somewhere
The,
else.
the
but-
dividing of that property, that building was built apparently to specification at that time, or it worked based on that, or it was, maybe it was built before the
Maybe
building, it was actually
before
taken into the
zoning
city,
at
I don't know.
Right.
But it was,
So if they wanted to, they could close that street and say it's a private drive.
I'm not an attorney on that. You know, I don't know. I mean, I know that
If
it,
it's theirs.
according to
they're
this, it says
maintaining
it's theirs, but
Yeah.
if people have been using it
Right.
all along, I don't know that they could stop
It'd be-
them all of a
it'd be
sudden.
hard- It'd be hard for them to stop. I
That's
think.
what I think so
I think
too.
as long as it's
Again, I'm not an
being used as
attorney,
a
so I
street.
don't know.
Right.
But if you've been utilizing something, and all of a sudden a landowner who has not stopped you previously, and you've been using it for years, I don't know that they can stop you. Again, that would be a question for Mr. Northcutt.
All right, I'll make some motion, Brad, if you still so desire.
okay, I think I did, but I can restate it.
I have something wrote down.
Okay.
Okay.
Then
I
let's
can
hear his
re-
motion again.
So do you want me to say it again or you want me to read it? Well, based on the, okay, I'll make a motion based on the description or the definition of frontage. I think we should determine that the west side of the building is the front of the building facing Oak Park Boulevard, and the east side is the rear of the building.
You have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Ben seconds it. Any additional comments on it before we move to vote? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, the like sign, and there are none. I believe I heard everybody say yes, so that passes unanimously. And they can move
What
forward
business, sir?
with great confidence. And he has no other business. Anybody else have any business? Anything else we need to talk about?
Do have a question. And hearing what the city's working on the comprehensive or strategic 5-year plan.
Strategic plan,
Strategic.
not the comprehensive.
Okay, has there been any talk about changing zoning or anything in that plan?
Oh, it has nothing to do with the comprehensive plan at this point.
Okay, so the.
Right now, the
strategic is-
strategic plan, once we've got it done, that gives us an idea if we think there's, we'll get it approved, bring it to you guys and see if we need to look at making any changes to the comprehensive plan.
Okay,
See if there's been any changes of any nature that require us to, it may be that we reaffirm or we are, as opposed to updating it, it may be that we just reaffirm what we had.
that's what I asked, just we'd get a heads
So
up.
we'll
if
take
we need
the,
to.
once it's approved by the council, we'll get it to you guys and that way you can look at it and determine whether or not you think that there's a need to proceed forward more so with a comprehensive plan update or just a reaffirmation of it.
Okay.
We have no other business. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
There we go. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.